Let me ask you a question. Who owns the sun? You know, that big bright thing that crosses the sky every day? Who owns that? That question may seem silly, but the answer is significant. The answer provides a key to solving two of the biggest and baddest problems the world faces today: climate change and poverty. I'm going to show you how an innovative answer to that question can merge the efforts to fight climate change and poverty into a single program that will help both the planet and all of humanity. The seed of this answer germinated way back in 1980 when I was teaching a course on solar energy at Cabrillo College. In the first class session, I wanted to motivate my students about why studying solar energy was important. I told them that solar is abundant, doesn't pollute the air and water, and will not run out like fossil fuels. But the final reason, the ultimate conclusion, was that burning fossil fuels releases carbon dioxide, which causes global warming. Now, I was not some climate prophet in 1980. This link between CO2 and climate change was well known 40 years ago in the science community, but no one seemed to be doing anything about it. So I was very glad in 1995 when the United Nations convened the first International Climate Change Conference, COP1. I thought, finally, we were getting some action on this problem. So I have watched in dismay as the nations of the world met every year since 1995 at COP 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to last year's COP 25. 25 years in a row, and we still have not solved this problem of carbon emissions from fossil fuels. This graph shows the worldwide burning of fossil fuel energy since 1980. If our efforts were working, this curve should be turning down. However, since COP1 in 1995, the curve has actually gotten a bit steeper, as you can see if we add the trend lines before and after COP1. And even more clearly, if we show just the trend lines. So, the UN conferences are clearly not doing what they're supposed to do, reducing carbon emissions. We know what the problem is, that the nations of the world refuse to agree to strong limits on fossil fuels. Every year, this virtual wall appears, preventing us from making progress. And every year, we come up to this wall and bang, beat our head against this wall. Bang, bang, bang. For 25 years, all this head banging has not flattened the curve. So I suggest we step back, look around, and try a different approach. That's what I'm offering today, a different approach. My approach is different because it does not directly address the problem of climate change, but instead pursues an even bigger and more immediate goal: eliminating poverty in the world. Now, you may be wondering, how can eliminating poverty solve our climate problem? The answer is by using solar energy to generate a basic income for everyone on the planet. For each and every person living on Earth, we install a set of solar panels, sell the electricity the panels generate, and provide that money to the person as their basic income. If we do that for everyone, then everyone will have an unconditional income and be raised out of poverty. That's how we eliminate poverty. And in the name of eliminating poverty, we will have installed enough solar power around the world to completely replace the burning of fossil fuels. So with one solution, we can address two of the world's biggest and hardest problems: global poverty and climate change. We bake 2 loaves in 1 oven. Now I need to show you how this would work. To do that, I need to establish 2 facts, 2 fundamental principles that lay the groundwork for this solution. If you can accept these 2 principles, then the solution naturally follows. The first principle is that sunlight has economic value. This fact is not commonly recognized because most sunlight falls on the ground and is wasted. But if you set up a photovoltaic panel to intercept the sunlight before it hits the ground, the solar energy is converted to electrical energy. That electricity can be fed into the electrical grid, and the local utility company will pay cash money for it. We all pay for electricity because it is incredibly useful. It can light our homes and workplaces, run our computers and phones, prepare our food, and even transport us around in electric cars. Because sunlight on solar panels generates electricity, and because we can sell electricity for cash, we can say that sunlight can generate cash. So, the first principle that makes this approach work is that sunshine has the potential to generate economic value. In other words, sunlight is worth money. The second principle that makes this approach work is that we can share that economic value. By that, I mean the economic potential contained in sunlight can be shared among all people. That probably sounds a little odd because we're used to getting our energy from fossil fuels. And the economic value of fossil fuels is most certainly not shared among all people. Coal, oil, and natural gas are controlled by a few giant corporations. Their investors get all the money. That money is rarely shared with the population. Now, I said that solar energy is worth money, so it is natural to ask who owns solar energy. It seems as though everything in this world is owned by someone. So who owns the economic value in sunlight? Well, who owns this? The answer is no one. The source of solar energy is the sun, and no one owns the sun. No person or nation on Earth can claim to own the sun because the sun is vastly bigger than our entire planet. If no one owns the sun, then no one owns the vast amounts of energy streaming off the surface of the sun in the form of light. This sunlight goes out in all directions, expanding into space. A tiny fraction of that sunlight is intercepted by the Earth in its orbit around the sun. That solar energy lands all over the entire surface of the globe, making it available to all nations and all people. Unlike fossil fuels, solar energy is available to everyone, not just a lucky few. You might assume that people that own land own any solar energy that hits it, but that is just an assumption. In fact, solar energy does not originate on the land, but comes from off the land, from outer space, as a matter of fact. A landowner can lease access to sky space for someone to set up panels to convert sunlight to electricity. Utilizing sky space above a parking lot does not prevent parking. Using the sky space above a building does not prevent using the building. Whoever does the conversion harvests the economic value in sunlight, with a portion going to the landowner for providing access. Anyone can buy solar panels and lease sky space. So solar is a resource that can be shared among all people. I say can be shared because it is certainly possible for society to create unfair economic rules where it isn't shared, so only a few benefit from it. We have done that with most other resources, but that is not inherent in this energy source, which is naturally spread over the entire surface of the planet. Sunlight is certainly abundant enough to share. We would need to use only 1 part in 5,000 of our solar resource to meet all of humanity's energy needs. And solar energy is available in all inhabited regions. Not equally, of course, but the differences are not as great as you think on an annual basis. But the main point is that solar energy is not controlled by energy conglomerates, but can be shared if society chooses to do so. So our two starting principles are that sunshine has value and we can share that value. So, how do we do that? We have to apply these principles in a practical program. I'm going to describe such a program to you, and if we carry out this program, we will eliminate poverty in the world. Now, instead of abstractly describing how this might work in the future, let me take you into that future and describe it firsthand. Hello? I'm calling from the year 2099. You'll be glad to know that we are still alive, that humans didn't destroy the world or each other. I'm here to tell you how we survived, using my story as an example. I'm 49 years old, but my story starts just before I was born in 2050. When my parents were young and preparing for my birth, they also took the extra step of registering me for my standard solar energy array. They contacted their local community solar cooperative, which was installing PV panels on solar farms in several locations inside and outside our city. My mother and father signed me up for a 10 kilowatt section of PV panels at the Cloverfield Solar Farm. Here's how it worked. My young parents didn't have the money to buy the panels, but they didn't need to. When they signed me up, the co-op borrowed the money to install my panels with a government-guaranteed loan. That guarantee brought with it government oversight to prevent fraud. My parents never had to make payments on that loan. After the co-op installed and connected the PV panels on the solar farm, the co-op sold the electricity to the local electric utility. The $1,000 per month the co-op received from the utility for that electricity covered the loan payments. The electricity paid off my solar loan by the time I was 4 years old. On the day of final payoff, something magical happens. The co-op threw a switch, and the money that had been flowing to the bank to pay off the loan instead started flowing into my personal co-op savings account. The money generated by my section of panels accrued to me, minus a small percentage kept by the co-op for maintenance and management. While I was growing up, between the ages 4 and 18, the co-op deposited what they called solar dividends into my personal solar fund. The co-op maintained that member account for me to accumulate the cash that my panels generated. At 18, my solar fund held about $200,000 in accumulated solar dividends and interest. At 18, it was turned over to me. That was my starter fund for my life. At 18, another change occurred. The co-op threw a second switch, and the monthly solar dividends that had been flowing into my co-op savings fund instead started flowing directly into my personal checking account. Each month, from the age of 18 to my current age of 49, I saw a $1,000 electronic deposit from the co-op appear in my checking account. As long as the co-op maintains the equipment and the sun continues to shine, I will continue to receive payments. For over 30 years, my monthly solar dividends have provided me with a basic income, which gives me economic security. Like most people, I work in order to have a better life. But solar dividends have given me a measure of freedom and kept me off the street. With a minimum income, I've been able to quit terrible jobs, take time off to improve my skills, take care of my aging parents, and pursue community projects, all of which have improved the quality of my life. The idea of basic incomes has been around for a long time and was made popular in 2020 by Andrew Yang running for president. But paying for it out of tax dollars has always been a barrier. So let me be clear that this basic income is not paid out of tax dollars. They are called solar dividends because they are earned by my functioning solar panels, which produce something useful for society, clean electricity. They are dividends on an investment. This money is not taken from one working person to give to another, but is instead generated from nature by converting sunshine to power. I call them my panels, but I don't actually own them. The co-op retains ownership of the hardware. What I'm granted is the right to the solar dividends those panels generate for the rest of my life. The co-op maintains and replaces the panels as needed to continue payments. I'm actually glad I don't own the panels, as my life would be more complicated if I did. If I moved away, I couldn't easily take them with me, and my new home might not be suitable to mount them. Since I derive only money from the panels, they can stay where they are, and the co-op can wire the money to me wherever I live. This process of installing solar panels for each newborn was repeated all over the world. There was no need for an international treaty. In each place, a local project was started by a few families organizing a co-op to generate solar dividends for their children. It worked so well that others copied the idea, and it grew all on its own, motivated by parents and grandparents seeking to provide economic security for their children. The year 2076 was a milestone. That year, the world completed the build-out of solar dividend systems for everyone all over the world. Some countries with extreme poverty took longer, but eventually the programs covered everyone. The effort wiped out most of the crushing poverty that had plagued humanity for centuries. Since every person now receives money from their solar array, there was simply no one left to be poor. We now have 10 billion people in the world, and each has a 10 kilowatt section of solar panels. That adds up to 100 trillion watts of solar power. These were combined with smaller amounts of indirect solar coming from wind and hydropower and with energy storage to create a complete replacement energy system for the world. Fossil fuels were no longer needed. As fossil fuels were retired, carbon emissions steadily dropped, and the drop in emissions was seen as a side effect since the program was built to cut poverty. Climate skeptics could not stop the program because it was not about climate change. Nevertheless, our atmosphere is on a path to recovery. Also, air pollution is way down, oil spills are a thing of the past, and the armies that were deployed to protect oil in the Middle East all went home. We have a more peaceful world now because nations no longer compete for energy, and we have an energy source that supports everyone's basic needs. So, that's the news from 2099. So long. I hope this glimpse of the future has helped you to see what might be possible. Back here in the present, we have this future to look forward to. Of course, it won't happen by itself, but here's the important thing. We don't have to invent anything to build this future. Solar panels are not new. I personally have lived in an off-grid solar home running on PV for over 20 years. Community solar farms are not new. They have been built in the US, Canada, Germany, England, and Greece. The US Department of Energy even offers a guidebook. Co-ops set up to generate electricity are also not new. They have been around for 90 years, powering rural America since the 1930s, longer than my lifetime. They demonstrate the longevity we need to sustain solar dividends for lifetimes. Even using solar-generated money to reduce poverty is not new. They tried this in China recently, and it did reduce poverty in the areas where they set it up. You might be wondering, can solar pay enough? The answer is yes, under the right conditions. In this short talk, I can only summarize the conditions. They include the size of the solar array, the amount of local sunshine, the overhead costs, and the buyback rate for electricity that's fed into the grid. The most important condition is the last one, the buyback rate, how much a solar farm can sell their electricity for. The higher that rate, the larger the solar dividends, and the more incentive there is for people to sign up their children. In the year 2000, the German government set up high buyback rates for solar electricity, and their solar energy exploded in response. Such higher rates will tend to push utility bills up, but we'll be getting far more than just electricity for our money. We will also be eliminating poverty and eliminating fossil fuels. And we get those benefits without needing higher taxes, just higher utility bills. This program can work because it operates with technology we already have and stays within our current economic framework. We just have to arrange the pieces differently. Some people are proposing a giant moonshot program to fix climate change, but that's so hard to get consensus on. We can start solar dividends now and at the local level. That's because it is modular, one 10 kilowatt system for one person. We just repeat that pattern until we cover everyone. And ordinary people can organize co-ops for solar dividends. Why would they do that? Because of a powerful human emotion, a parent's concern for their children. People may not be motivated to save the planet, but they will sure try to save their children. Right now, the younger generations face a future of economic insecurity because traditional jobs are being replaced by robots and artificial intelligence. At the same time, young people will likely face unprecedented climate disasters that they had no hand in creating. We have a responsibility to prepare a better future than this for our children. Solar energy gives us a new tool to fix inequality in the world. We use that tool to make sure everyone has a stake in the new solar-powered world. Everyone becomes a producer of energy. There may not be enough oil wells to go around, but there is certainly enough sunshine for everyone. So, while our leaders continue to bang their heads against the wall, the rest of us can roll up our sleeves and build something positive. This is a huge project, but we can do it incrementally. It will take time, but anything this far-reaching should take time to build. When we get bogged down in the details and the hard work, we could recall just 3 words that can act as a beacon to guide us toward this future. Those 3 words are share the sun. If we share the sun, we share the wealth. If we share the sun by connecting each child to solar at birth, we can give them a secure future and a clean future. It will be a fine birthday gift to them. Share the sun. Thank you for listening.